Good afternoon, everyone. This is RAND. Welcome to the Global Guided Meditation Call for Monday, August 12, 2024, a little after 3:15 p.m. Eastern. We have a time for change call this Wednesday night, a little after 9:15 p.m. We're going to go over the quantum system again so that people have more clarity and knowledge. And evidently a lot of people just either weren't on the call at that time or didn't take notes or whatever. And we're going to talk about the movie. We're all in like this sea of duality. Excuse me. So you realize that the old pendulum that swings back and forth from being lost to being found over and over and over again. So you realize that your mind is not the only mind out there that is making a living hell or heaven out of each moment. We have about 8.5 billion of them. Everyone's doing this. We're all blind to the divine. We simply choose to learn how to release all attachments and trust in God and surrender to its totality. Now, when we take this risk to dissolve back into the source, in each moment we naturally discover how everything around us is helping and guiding us to be free. Now, some people say, well, you're not. I'll let go and surrender, and that'll be it. You know what it's like? Every day, all day long. Because when the pendulum swings into, crap, and you get that pressure, and then it goes into the crap. And some people it's a living hell, some people it's lighter than that. And then it goes back and it'll go into goodness. Now, when you surrender, see, when that stuff's going on, and you say to yourself, I don't really care to have this heaviness on me. And what's the reason for it anyway? Why am I embracing that heaviness? We all do it. None of us are exempt from it. So you go, I just going to let that pass by. And then you go into surrender, letting go. Letting go. You just say, I surrender everything. I surrender my life. I surrender everything. Now, and I know that there's a lot of people that would be fearful of that because of their programming and where they're at right now on this evolutionary track. They're afraid of that. The ego mind is sitting there going, "Oh, you can't lose all that. You can't. Don't do that." And so a lot of people say, "No, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that." Even if you say you're not gonna lose anything, you're just letting go of it. The more we let go, the freer we become. The more we hang on, the more imprisoned we become. How it works for all of us. So, it's like a bunch of stuff coming in, and you see this, and you see that, and you hear this, and you hear that. And you want to go hide out in the woods sometimes. Well, you do it by just letting it go. Surrendering it. All the time. I probably surrender, a few hundred times a day. Because, the ego mind is constantly pushing that stuff. And many of us embrace that stuff. It's like you say to yourself, how would I be affected if I didn't have that anymore? Okay? And when you can gently in the heart mind say, Either way, it's fine. I'm good with it. So I have it and I don't have it. But when I had it, I enjoyed it. Now, another thing that's interesting, we can have things. Could be anything, relationship, material things. And we take them for granted. You could have something and hardly ever use it or enjoy it. And then it's gone, and you go, man, I wish I would have spent more time with that. See? We do take things for granted. None of us are exempt from it. From time to time, we take things for granted because we get in a routine and we get in a regimen. Every day, over and over and over, year after year after year after year. So what we're experiencing, interfacing with all the temporary things, we really take them for granted. What would happen? What do you believe would happen? Is that the American people, right? One day they wake up in the morning and they have no power. What do you think would happen? Well, some would say, I'll call the power company. Probably just a power outage. Just a little power outage. This happened. And then they start looking around and they go, wow, it's everywhere. And then people call some downtown, the city, wherever. And say, no, our power's out too. Now imagine not having any power. Now, of course, our ancestors at one time didn't have any power. They did just fine. You see how we get acclimated and we take things for granted because they're always there. Flip the switch, there it is. Or water. Turn the spigot, there it is. Or heat. Turn it on, warmth. You see what I mean? That whole process is what we get acclimated to and programmed into, and so we never think about that not being there. Or what would you do if you didn't have a cell phone? Look at how many people, and I know people that don't have cell phones, but the majority of us have the cell phones, the smartphones, right? And a lot of people rely on it like it's their life's breath. So what would happen if none of the smartphones worked? Couldn't text anybody, couldn't call anybody. Because you remember when you were away from home, some of you do. We left the house, we had a hardwired phone. We didn't have anything with us. Really didn't. Some of us had some pagers for work, that was about it. But we didn't have anything. We were just footloose, fancy-free. If anybody were going to call us, they'd have to. And, see, there was a time we didn't have voicemail, voice messages. You didn't have them. Then, of course, we came out with the voice recorders that we would hook up to our phones. And people, and then people could leave messages. But, see, there was a time where we just had a hardwired phone on the wall or on a desk, and we didn't have any other way to communicate, except in person, right? So the American people got together more. They got together more. They interacted more. They did more one-on-one communications. Doesn't mean any of them were any more aware percentage-wise than what we have now in this country. But taking things for granted is pretty much the norm. Look at as children, you grow up, you're being raised, and there's power, there's lights, and there's heat, and there's water for baths or showers. But you just never think about that until something happens and you don't have it. Then you appreciate it. So that's a comparison. We're able to compare things, which is really good. We have the opportunity in this life to create things that we experience for ourselves. And you ever notice that there's something, we never stop learning. Some people think they know it all. But then they find out they're only scratching the surface. That's ego mind. But when you start to realize, okay, so I've experienced this, so I know the difference between this and that, which is a good thing. In a lot of cases, it keeps us in the body longer. But if you don't have any comparisons, how how are you going to learn or experience? Really not. You're not going to learn. You may experience. This is why we create things in our lives that sometimes challenge us and then sometimes reward us. So we can have a variance in this physical body so that we can learn different variables. You go through life and you learn certain things and experience them. And then something comes up, and because of that, you're able to maneuver or solve the problem. See what I mean? Because of what you've experienced so far in your life. Now, I'm sure you've met people that are naive, right? They're not plugged in, so to speak. So they're pretty naive and gullible. And to a certain extent, I think we're all gullible. I think that, we make certain decisions based upon whatever. And sometimes we realize, oh boy, I stepped in that one. See, we don't realize this, and I believe also this is a fear. That the really good news is that we've got 1 billion more lifetimes or more to become enlightened. Now, you say that to some people that are in the body now, and they'll go, you got to be kidding me? 1 billion more lifetimes? 1,000 million? And then as we're on this journey, in this massive evolutionary spiritual experience, we then begin to realize that God is never going to stop loving us. And then the bad news is that if postponed, you will miss out on 1,000 opportunities heading your way today. There's no real end to this journey. People think, we've been programmed to think that there's a beginning and an end. Well, in material physical world, we experience that, right? We do something and it begins and it ends. But does it ever really end? The effects of what we do are unending. So there really isn't any end to the journey. When we leave the body, right? When you don't die when you die. See the confusion there? So truly there is nothing to be concerned about when you realize you are an eternal being. You know this deep within you. Now, how do we know if we're there with that? Okay? How do we know if we're in sync with that? Well, then there's nothing to be worried or fearful about. And they don't worry and they don't fear. That's how you know. That's how you'll know about yourself. We are on an infinite journey. It never ends. We are always safe on the right path. But we've made it this far. And we are still a very conscious and deeply sensitive being. This is a very good sign. A very good sign. Magna glorious sign. And what happens is that we start to believe, this is what we've, how we're trained, how we're programmed, however you want to put it. We are taught to be fearful. We are taught to worry. We are taught to stress. We're programmed. We are programmed to get angry. We are programmed to get revengeful. Now, this is all ego-mind programming. The mind, the brain, right? The mind and the brain are different. But this is all programming. You don't program the heart-mind. It doesn't program. It is the gateway to the God that we are within these bodies. Everybody thinks the heart's just an organ that pumps blood, right? Far more than that. Far more than that. See, because our blood in our bodies is an information highway, sending messages throughout the body to a few trillion cells that we have in these bodies. It's a super highway. We have over 1 million doors that we could walk through on this endless journey. There's over 1,000 paths to enlightenment and over 1 million doors we can walk through to experience this moment as divine. Now you have an activity, and you're all watching it, okay? Or people interaction, whatever. How often would you say that you judge? Interesting question to pose to oneself. How often do I judge? And understand this is all about what? Experiencing and learning about oneself. Leaving the mind and the ego alone and watching and learning and then beginning to master not only the ego mind but your thoughts. If somebody says, well, what happens after you've mastered your thoughts? How do you know you've mastered your thoughts? Because you pick out the thought that you want to generate out to the universe. Everyone. You choose whatever it is that you send out. That you decide to send out, you choose what to send out. Right now, we just have all these random thoughts running all over the planet from billions and billions and billions of past lives. It's like I said, the thoughts don't disappear from this planet, so you can kind of figure that one out. Why do you think we're getting lambasted with this mind chatter, people call it, every day, 24/7? Because we get over 60,000 thoughts over and over and over again playing out. And this is where most of us pick up the things that we do, through these thoughts. So it's no matter if we are conscious human beings or not. The mind is constantly judging ourselves, other people, this world, and anything that it can get a hold of. It was born with this master-like, judgeaholic power. It can judge anything in milliseconds. Now, we may have not realized this yet, but probably in the last 15 minutes, your mind has passed 10 judgments on yourself, someone else, or something in the world around you as either good or bad. The judgmental mind is perpetually busy working away at labeling life. It's like, you've seen those labelers, right? Some of you probably had them, where you label things, a little plastic strip, and you punch out the old ones, you'd punch out the name and then stick it on whatever. Imagine running around life and you've got one of those and you're just labeling everything. That's the mind. That's what our mind does. Everything is labeled. Everything. What do you think in this civilization that we have to label everything? Isn't that crazy? And it's like, you kind of visualize the mind as it's all oiled, right? And you try to catch it, contain it, and it just slips out of your hands. It's a slippery little devil. So if you ask yourself what judgment is for you, for me, it's the mind labeling something in life as either good or bad, but not both. See, you got to be either or, not both. It has this one-sided viewpoint of existence which separates and divides interestingly. Judgment manifests only when we are living up in the head and are disconnected from our heart. When we're living from the heart, the mind cannot judge. It simply cannot judge. This occurs because the heart is free from duality. And the mind can only exist in duality. See, when we go in these meditations, we're dropping out of duality. And the mind can only exist in duality. Now you understand why the mind is not there. The ego is not there in the quiet time of these meditations. It's not there. It doesn't exist. See, our heart it just can't get hooked in whatever the mind believes is only good or only bad. And when the heart is leading the way, we are free from the perpetual prison of the judging mind. And it is a perpetual prison. You imagine how many people on this planet are judging every minute, every second, either themselves or things outside of them. So we choose to drop out of the head into the heart. We choose it. Then the mind will quiet. And it will become very still. And from this space, we can watch our minds closely and see just how slippery its judgmental habit is. We can see how it tends to avoid what it deems as scary. Our mind often believes that if I get what I want, this is good. Then I will be happy. And if I get what I don't want, this is bad. Then I'll be unhappy. The more enlightened path, however, is understanding that in this great, divine, supreme, all-intelligent universe, we're going to get it all. Every last bit of it. We always, always, always get what we want and what we don't want. And so one might say, well, that doesn't make any sense. How is that possible? You focus on what you want, you get what you want. Why would you get what you don't want along with what you get what you want? Well, it's a little confusing, but to simplify it, and I've used this analogy before, you have a lot of money all of a sudden. Okay? You got a lot of money. But you're not over in the area of securing the money, managing the money, and protecting the money. That's not registered. You're just focused on having the money. Then when you get the money, all this other stuff on the flip side comes in. You go, wow, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about this. I didn't think about this. I was too, absorbed into actually experience receiving the money. I didn't think about all this other stuff. That's what it means by, you get what you want and you get what you don't want. Okay? Now, when we focus on what we don't want only, that's all we're going to get. See what I mean? When you focus on what you don't want only, that's exactly what you're going to get. And it's not denial. One would say, well, that's denial. Why would it be denial? Here, if you see something going on or you read something, that's all programming. Remember that. That's all programming. Everything on the internet is programming. Everything is programming. So where you choose to spend your time, you're getting programmed. Now you may not realize it, but you're getting programmed. And the more time you spend in the jungle, you're going to get more programming. And then you start to focus on things that you don't want to have happen, right? You focus on things that you don't want to have happen. And they happen. You see how it plays? You see how finite this slave system has been on this planet? And unfortunately for the slave controllers, it's shifted. More and more people, and this is unprecedented in the history of humanity, of mankind, of the species. So, what is that about? The less programming you receive from outside sources, the more flexible and the more aware you're going to become about who and what you are. And program yourself. Program yourself. Do not allow this stuff to program you. Yeah, there's some of it, but it's still programmed. Let's say you're looking at an instructional. Let's say you look at an instructional on YouTube. Right? You're being programmed to learn how to do it. Everything's a program. Now, I'm not saying it's all bad, but when you start choosing what you want to have programmed into you, it's a whole different ballgame. And we're not talking about being paranoid or anything. We're just talking about this is how you begin to master your thoughts. One of the ways. And so you start to realize, I'm not going to read this stuff. It's addictive, though, A lot of people get addicted. They got to get that fix. What's going on? What's happening? What's going on here and there? And then someone might ask another one of us and say, did you hear about this? No, not at all. Where have you been? Living in the now. I can't believe you don't know about this. No, I spend my time mostly in the now. Because it's the only thing that we really, truly have. And the now is it. You see, because why would we continually be mastered by the ego mind? Why? Why would we choose that? We wouldn't. That's how slick it is. So we should say, I want to master the ego mind to yourself. It's through the heart mind that you're going to master the ego mind. It's not through the ego mind that you're going to master the ego mind. And once you get into that and understand that, then you begin to go deeper and deeper and deeper within you. Now, one might say that if you had all this, then life would become just so redundant. No, why would it? You're in control of your thoughts. You know what you want to send out. You may say to yourself, you're going to send out a challenge that you want to experience, right? Now, it doesn't mean you know how you're going to respond to that challenge. It doesn't mean that you know how you're going to maneuver this and maneuver that. That's not there. But you do know that you want an experience. And you want a challenging experience. So you manifest that. This is what happens with all of us on this planet. We manifest both good and bad. And this is why we learn, and this is why we experience. Doesn't that make sense? Let's put it this way. if you're traveling, right, and you're in a vehicle and you're on the steering wheel and you're going along, and if the road was just straight and flat forever, some of us have been on those journeys, right? And the landscape's just, it's boring. There's nothing really to look at. And so if you imagine if our lives were like that kind of journey, wouldn't that be wild? But it isn't. You know why? Because we don't care for that. We're interested in learning and experiencing, so that's what we do. Now, one might say, why would I create an experience like this? How about if you ask yourself, what are you learning from it? See, that's an ego mind response. I would never create an experience like this for myself. Well, that's ego mind and material physical world. That's not your spirit. That's not the God or the soul, whatever you want to call it, inside this body. Now, through the heart mind, you say, what am I learning from this? What am I experiencing? See, most of us don't do that. We just flail off. We flail around and yell and scream and get angry at ourselves and others. But when you reverse that and you do it through the heart mind, it's a whole different ballgame. Because you're actually dead. You're saying, let's see what I've learned from this. What am I experiencing right now from this? Why would I create this for myself? This is how we truly teach ourselves. We manifest things that we experience to learn, and then we continually progress, and we always create things, both pros and cons. Because we know we need to have a variance, okay? That it can't just be for us. It just can't be on one side. Then we're not going to learn, period. So in order for us to learn, we create both sides. And just like the coin that has three sides, the middle path, we balance things, okay? We keep balance. Sometimes we get out of balance, more experience, but that's our direction. Through this life, we keep balance. We don't go too far over to the left or too far over to the right. We stay in the center, which is the heart mind. I'll join in a meditation. I'll return to close us out. Take an easy and slow breath in through the nose. An easy and slow breath out from the mouth. Remain still, focused on your breath rising and falling. Everything is temporary. Everything changes, is impermanent in this universe. The more we surrender to this truth, the easier it becomes to live in a state of awe, wonder, and deep appreciation for this life. What is here now just might not exist tomorrow. Today is your day to see how precious and beautiful this delicate life truly is. Take this with you for the rest of the day, into the evening and night, and the following morning. We'll return here Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. A little after 3:15 p.m. Eastern, to continue our global guided meditation call. Be gentle, kind, generous, and humble with yourself at all times. Be in the highest of the highest high, deepest of the deepest deepest, purest of the purest purest, eternal gratitude at all times. No matter what's going on outside of you or within you, open your heart and allow the magic to flow in.